everybody. This is video number 2 in the God System series, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about the universal language of harmonics. And as much as I want to get into the fun stuff soon, we have to build a belief system in the stuff I'm going to talk about in the future, the energy tools I'm going to show you how to use, and all the things that come after this. We need to build a foundation in belief to be able to really make the changes on that subconscious level. You've taught yourself to believe at the deepest level a fork is an eating tool. So you can't wake up today and decide it's not. You can consciously, but it doesn't rule your beliefs. That's just what you think day to day. Your subconscious actually determines your beliefs. So we're trying to change those types of beliefs, and we can't do that by just saying, hey, you know, astrology works. We can't do that. That's just someone preaching to you about different systems working. Your subconscious isn't going to buy it. It's one of the reasons I think spirituality takes off in pockets and places, but never really goes anywhere, because nobody's really understanding. They're not changing anybody's belief, just their thinking. Just like you can tell yourself a fork isn't the eating tool. Now, what happens if you wake up in the morning and tell yourself that the fork is no longer the eating tool, but the spoon is? You introduce a spoon. Now, what's going to happen in your subconscious is it's going to find it much easier to let go of that idea that the fork is what you eat food with, if it has another utensil that does the same thing. And that is what I'm trying to instill in your subconscious through these videos. What can I tell you to convince that subconscious of yours that the missing link was actually the invisible information being directed at the earth to create life? And over time it did, including eventually early man. So how did early man use harmonics to bring us into civilized man? And why can't we see this in our history? Well, caveman looked up. That's it. They looked up. These harmonics that were being directed to the earth taught them to look up. And in looking up, it's the only thing that everybody from earth could see was the sky. So it didn't matter where you were as early man. If you looked up, you had the exact same blueprint as everybody else in the world. So eventually, early man noticed the patterns by looking up. They watched the sun and the moon and the stars, right? They eventually started measuring the moon and the sun and the ratio to the stars. They started making measurements. So they would make a notch in the stone, you know, and another notch. This is how time started. You can look up the megalithic structure at Karnak, C-R-N-A-C, and I think it's 4,000 years before Christ is the oldest, might be the oldest megalithic structure of measurement of time, the one that shows how the markings on that particular stone created time. And what it shows is basically, and I'm just going to make a long story short because the mathematics is way over my head. What the markings on this stone showed was that the caveman started using the measurement of an inch for one day. Cavemen weren't literate. They didn't talk. They had no way to communicate anything. So they became what we call numerate. They communicated through numbers. And those ratios came from looking up and doing measurements of our moon, our sun, and our star, right? So these were the systems they can find at Karnak, made by the Stone Age caveman, that all they did was look up. But the vibration, the information that was pounding down on our earth at that time was there to evolve man. Just like before then, it was to evolve the things in the ocean and the trees and the grass. So the harmonic codes had changed under the astrological alignment. So time is an actual mathematical equation. It's not something that exists. It didn't exist until somebody made a mark. Just because cavemen were numerate doesn't mean they had numbers. They didn't. So they couldn't say, oh, it's 1 inch. They didn't have the numbers 1, 2, 3. Those weren't invented yet. So all they had was ratios, fractions. Okay, that's 3/8 of that distance. equals that. Right? That's what the original harmonics that were sent to Earth to the early man, that's what was taught to them through the mathematics, the ratios of the positioning of the objects in the sky. And from there, they created time. So what does that have to do with the missing link? Well, we're looking for a reason for caveman's brains to evolve into our brains. And we're missing something. How did this happen? There's nothing to show us because it's invisible. It's the invisible information coming into their brains that they're absorbing 24/7. Once the harmonics woke early man up to look up and make these calculations and see these patterns and start marking it down on our stones, right? They could start planning a cycle of when it gets cold and hot, agriculture, when it's good to plant, not plant. So the missing link is simply the inability of our scientists to believe there's any information in the system being beamed down to us through consciousness. Scientists recognize this field, this consciousness field. It's measured. Our interactions are seen within it. It's real. Scientists don't speculate. And this is why we have the patterns. Civilizations change every 2,000 years. Piscean era to the Aquarian era, because the planets were aligned to send you the messaging to evolve the people in those 2,000 years to where we are here. And now the planets have done this major shift to bring in the next 2,000 years of civilization. It's not so bad, except for the people here during it, because the messaging system is different. We're not getting the same messages. Do this. You don't get the same response as you did 20 years ago because we have new information. And so this is what's happening in this transition. This is why everything is breaking down. We're done with the old, literally. It's the old messaging. We have evolved enough in our world as human beings to get the new message. And this is an ongoing process, right? As the planets move around every 2,000 years into a new house, you get a new set of lessons, a new set of ideas, a new set of values, a new set of understandings. That's why we don't stay the same. The harmonics of the universe changes its messaging. This is another reason I like to explain this system, is to give people faith in something so much bigger than themselves, right? No matter what the world looks like right now, this universal language of harmonics is beating and pulsing through our world right now, changing it. It's changing. We're not bigger than that God system and that messaging system, and it's time for us to change. So if you don't change with it, what happens? You get angry, you get frustrated, nothing works, you have a mental health crisis, many suicides, depression, anxiety. So if you can't resonate with the new message, you're gonna struggle. Start resonating with the things that you need in your life to draw them into existence in a matter way. So in summary, it was just really important to, again, hammer home on those beliefs of yours that there is something new to consider. Whether it's the observer effect in particle physics, or it's a universal harmonic language beating down on our planet to always be evolving us. And depending on the positioning of our planets, our moon and our sun, that dictates the message we're going to get during that day, that month, that year. This is why astrology is actually a closer science to helping people with their psychological issues than psychology. You're waking up to the fact you're not who you think you are. You are a spiritual being made up of all information, and you are communicating in a conscious field, giving information back and forth to create what you look at every day. So if anything, these videos can hopefully wake you up to being much more aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. So you're not going to have control of what you're inputting right away after figuring this information out and coming to that belief. Practice, you'll input less and less negative and sadness and anger into the field. So thanks for watching video number 2. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you share with other people. Great day, and we'll see you soon with the next one. You know I love yous.